TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israel, Austria, and Denmark have trilaterally agreed to establish a joint fund earmarked for innovative projects to combat the coronavirus disease. IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi reveals that a new technical agreement was reached with Iran to address concerns over undeclared nuclear materials found in the Islamic Republic. Israeli Defense Minister Gantz warns in an exclusive interview with Fox News, if the international community fails to thwart Iran's nuclear aspirations, Israel will be forced to act independently. Israel, Austria, and Denmark have trilaterally agreed to establish a joint fund earmarked for innovative projects to combat the coronavirus disease, alongside a joint investment plan for the purpose of developing vaccination production plants in both Europe and Israel, aimed to enhance vaccine supply. Amid growing criticism of the European Union's slow rollout of COVID vaccines, the leaders of Austria and Denmark, Chancellor Sebastian Kurz and Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, decided to bolster their country's cooperation with the State of Israel, where approximately 90% of the general public have already been either inoculated by one dose or more of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine or recovered from the coronavirus. In a joint press conference in Jerusalem, from where they announced the trilateral arrangement, the three leaders voiced confidence in their joint way forward.
We're going to do a joint R&D fund and discuss the production, the possibility of joint investment in productions of facilities for vaccines. I think this is great news, and I think it reflects the respect we have for each other and the belief, the confidence that we have in working together to protect the health of our peoples.
We have agreed today to bring our knowledge together in a kind of a collective effort to secure better and also more reliable access to vaccines. Therefore, as we have already said, we will bolster our research and development cooperation. We all have promising research that could pave the way for next generation platforms. We would like in common also to explore possible cooperation on clinical trials. In Denmark, we are currently exploring ways to expand our national production capacities.
We decided to jointly invest in production plants in Europe and Israel to enhance vaccine supply. Vaccine production involves many steps, so we will divide the tasks between us and each focus on specific ones. In Austria, for example, lipid production necessary for many vaccines takes already place. And I would like to thank you, Bibi, and you, Mette, for this cooperation, because I think that it is important to work together in order not only to fight the virus now, but also to fight the mutations in the next years.
Turning to the Austrian capital, Vienna, where the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Mariano Grossi, revealed that a technical agreement was reached with the Islamic Republic of Iran, as part of which technical experts from the nuclear watchdog will meet with their Iranian counterparts for the purpose of attempting to clarify a number of withstanding questions about nuclear materials which were uncovered at undeclared facilities. When asked whether the new arrangement would grant the agency access to sites suspected of undeclared nuclear activities, as was the case under the additional protocol of the JCPOA, the IAEA chief said the following.
No, this has nothing to do with the additional protocol. The additional protocol, its provisional application or the suspension of it is something different that has to do with the way in which we interact with Iran and the kinds of authorities that we have. This thing is about some very concrete cases that we have which we have not been able to clarify up until now. So we have decided together, I had this initiative and I proposed this initiative, and they agreed that we should sit down at technical level in Tehran and start looking into them one by one.
It is important to explain that the arrangement was reached between Tehran and the IAEA prior to the Board of Governors quarterly meeting earlier this week, during which the E3, which includes Britain, France, and Germany, intended to submit a scathing resolution against the Islamic Republic over its decision to abandon the so-called additional protocol, a move which effectively ended any access by IAEA inspectors to suspected sites of illegal nuclear activities. Nevertheless, after the E3 were informed of the aforementioned arrangement, they decided to suspend their resolution, which naturally raised questions on whether the Iranians merely agreed to the arrangement for the purpose of stalling anticipated punitive measures.
Regarding the external consequences of the steps we have taken, I leave it up to you. What this achieve or not, whether a resolution was prevented or not. What I believe is that this whole thing is moving forward. It is obvious for everybody that all these matters need to have some resolution.
On the one hand, the Iranians are clearly telling you you will have less access. That's why you had to make this deal. And at the same time, you expect to clarify more. At the same time, they're limiting your usual access.
Yeah.
Isn't that some kind of a contradiction or wishful thinking, maybe?
I'm an optimistic person.
It is worth mentioning that the referred to concerns have been initially raised by the IAEA roughly 2 years ago, after Israel's intelligence agency Mossad, in a daring operation, managed to extract significant amounts of nuclear-related files that were stored by the Islamic Republic in an undeclared warehouse in Tehran. Within those files, a number of facilities were identified as storage units for undeclared nuclear materials. Consequently, the IAEA demanded access to the suspected sites as part of the additional protocol, which was granted only after several months of repeated requests. Subsequently, inspectors extracted environmental samples which, following a thorough analysis, were found to contain traces of nuclear material. Since then, Iran responded to numerous questions by the IAEA, which the latter repeatedly asserted to be technically not credible. Therefore, when Iran claimed to be willing to answer the long-standing concerns with concrete answers, the E3, with the support of the US, agreed to refrain from putting forward their scathing resolution.
IAEA Director Grossi offered a proposal for Iran to address unanswered concerns regarding its nuclear program. The E3 decided, with the full support of the United States, that the best way to support the IAEA's process was to refrain from putting forward the draft resolution at the meeting of the Board of Governors.
The State Department spokesperson went on to reject any expected change in U.S. policy toward Iran, which is evidently waiting for the Biden administration's capitulation.
Iran should not be waiting for anything, because we have stated very clearly that what we are prepared to do is to engage in constructive dialogue. That is the offer that has been on the table. I know that various proposals and ideas have been put forward from various capitals. The proposal that we have put forward, that the E3 has accepted and endorsed, that the EU has now put forward its own offer, is to take part in principled, clear-eyed, constructive negotiations in the context of the P5+1 with the Iranians, where we can discuss the very issues that might be at play. Again, if there are other proposals for formats, we are open to those, but what we are going to be rigid about is our recognition about what we seek, and that is very simple. Permanent, verifiable limits on Iran's nuclear program, limits that permanently prevent Iran from ever attaining a nuclear weapon.
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, in an exclusive interview with Fox News' Trey Yingst, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz said that if the international community fails to thwart Iran's nuclear aspirations, Israel will be forced to act independently.
The only time of completing them will be the time that we will actually conduct them. Till then, we will continue to build them, to improve them. This is something that any military needs to do. We are working on it. We have them in our hands, of course, but we will continue and constantly improving them to the highest professional level possible. But it's very important to remember what you have just said, Ray. The Iranians are breaking everything that was agreed with them. They are bluffing in any aspect that one can think. They are spreading it all across Iran. And this is something that they are trying to build, or either to use it, God forbid, or to use it as a deterrence canopy to enable them to even further the pressure on the regional aspects that we have been talking about. Therefore, the Iranian nuclear aspiration must be stored. If the world stops them before, it's very much good. But if not, we must stand independently and we must defend ourselves by ourselves.
Thank you for watching us. As part of TV7 Israel's prayer initiative, I would like to encourage you today to join myself and the team here in Jerusalem to lift up the people of North Korea in prayer for their salvation and peace, alongside prayers for our persecuted brothers and sisters around the world, in addition to our ongoing prayers for the peace of Jerusalem, salvation of Israel, for all those who are impacted by the corona contagion and its numerous ramifications worldwide. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you a Shabbat Shalom U'Mevorach, and we will see you again on Monday at the same time.